No introduction, let's dive right into it. There are two main sides in this story and they're inherently linked. Unicron and the Matrix and whoever wields it. One would have no meaning without the other. They are Manichaean opposites. Unicron's evil nature is strongly represented visually. Bat wings, horns, feet like an eagle's claws, spikes on his forearms. More thought-provokingly, in his planet form, the teeth. A sort of jaws of the universe. The predator, devourer of life. And he's as menacing and sharp and spiky on the outside as on the inside. In fact, one could very well say he is a representation of hell itself. The Autobots have blue eyes to signify purity. The Decepticons have them red. Danger. Threat. The Decepticons are drunk with greed and violence, and symbolically it may be interpreted as the visual representation of madness, like the bloodlust glittering in a murderous man's crazy eyes. Early in the film, Daniel exclaims, "Prime, you can't die." Prime replies, "Do not grieve. Soon I shall be one with the Matrix." That right there is the absence of death. It signifies afterlife. Just like in Abrahamic religion, life after earthly life. Until the day till all are one, reunited in heaven. Whereas the Decepticons and evil beings or sinners do die, permanently. The Matrix is stored in the chest rather than in the brain or elsewhere, as if a heart. This humanizes the Autobot. When Prime dies, his body turns black and dark gray, the machine equivalent of carrion. He is no longer physically living. In the very next scene, the Decepticons are shown in the space shuttle Astro Train in need of lightening their weight. A Decepticon literally brings up survival of the fittest, the brutal law of the jungle, to decide who stays on and who doesn't. Starscream mischievously proposes an aye or nay vote, to which the operational robots resoundingly respond aye, and the gruelingly damaged ones respond with a quivering nay before they're unmercifully thrown off the shuttle, pitifully begging for their lives. A stark difference with the Autobots in how they deal with their own. What follows is a free-for-all brawl breaking out in the shuttle to determine who the new boss should be. Division rather than harmony, and if one wants to be political about it, anarchy rather than democracy. No fairness or justice there. No deathbed, and no life-transferring ceremony. Instead, revenge and merciless competition to the death. Here are a few examples of how the Autobots are diametrically opposed to them. RC is constantly protecting and looking after Daniel. Springer and RC act as mother and father to Daniel. They care for a mere human being who's more of a burden than any help to them. Ultra Magnus sacrifices himself for his fellow Autobots. Thanks to Cup's universal greeting, Ba Weep Grana Weep Ninibong, they managed to befriend the very hostile Junkions, which leads to a wild and random dance scene. Which then leads to the reassembling and resurrection of Ultra Magnus, as well as a means to launch an attack on Unicron, the ship the Junkions will provide the Autobots. By contrast, when Galvatron makes a dramatic appearance during Starscream's coronation, none of the Decepticons even moves a finger to aid their comrade and new leader, as he is brutally disintegrated, and then they all gladly accept Galvatron immediately as the new boss, merely because they're intimidated by his show of power, rather than impressed with his values or virtues as a leader. And stubborn, rebellious Galvatron himself only obeys Unicron because of that agonizing migraine he subjects him to. After blowing Ultra Magnus to pieces, Galvatron grabs the Matrix and says, "Unicron, my master, with this I shall make you my slave. And later, you'll do my bidding or taste my wrath." Respect comes through coercive action, domination, and brute force with the Decepticons. Again, only the cruel law of the jungle. Galvatron sees the Matrix, the archetypal symbol of love, as a weapon of oppressive power and fails to unleash its potential because of that fundamental misunderstanding about its nature and where its power comes from. Love isn't a gun. Unicron mentions himself the Matrix is the thing, the only thing that can stand in his way. Interestingly, as Moonbase 2 is about to be engulfed by the monster planet, Spike sets up the explosives and naively says, if this doesn't stop it, nothing will. Ultra Magnus says about Unicron, maybe the Matrix can stop it. And Hotshot exclaims, you're right, it can. Which Kup contests, what do you know about it? And Hot Rod says, I've just got this feeling. Like there's a gut feeling, so to speak. A deep knowledge inside of what the right thing to do is. The essence and meaning of the movie are revealed in the last scenes. Hot Rod rips the glowing Matrix off Galvatron and becomes Rodimus Prime. That was the actual proverbial darkest hour being referenced repeatedly throughout the movie, the one point in time when good should prevail over evil once and for all. Galvatron tries to prevent the inevitable, which is when Rodimus asserts this is the end of the road Galvatron, meaning the end of the reign of terror of the minion Galvatron and more broadly, Unicron. After easily disposing of Galvatron, he proceeds to harness the full potential of the Matrix as he speaks the words, "Light our darkest hour," a parallel that could be drawn with the very central biblical concept of light. Let there be light, or the light of Christ in a world of abyssal darkness. The scene is quite striking visually as metaphorically, as the light of the Matrix traverses the literal bowels of evil, Unicron's belly, and kills the devil from the inside, where he is incapable of hiding or fleeing. As the other Autobots rush to get out, Daniel stops and shouts, "Look," pointing towards the detonating corridor, as a triumphant Rodimus Prime emerges from the distance. He stands there heroically, the savior. If you can be open-minded about this, in concept, he is like the second coming of Christ, the Messiah finally returned to save the souls of the righteous. He immediately provides leadership and guides them all as the spearhead out of Unicron and his imminent doom. Seconds later, back on Cybertron, Rodimus exclaims, "Let this mark the end of the Cybertronian wars as we march forward to a new age of peace and happiness, till all are one." He doesn't say the end of a war, but the end of the wars. And he doesn't say a temporary moment of peace, he says a new age of peace and happiness. So he means the end of war for good and a permanent new age of peace and happiness. Although for commercial reasons the producers went on to prolong the Transformers adventures, as a standalone, this story can be understood as the Autobots have reached the Promised Land, Cybertron as their own Zion, or Heaven. They've defeated the wicked oppressors, put a stop to the violence and destroyed evil eternally, and have earned themselves everlasting peace. They're no longer subject to the mortal endeavor of combating Unicron and his army, and have freed themselves from the existential strain and decay of war.